Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Great. My name is Bobby McKenzie, and on behalf of New America, I am honored and thrilled to have you here today for what is truly a timely event and a much-needed event. But let me just take a minute to tell you a little bit about my own work here. I moved here, I guess, just over a year ago from the Brookings Institution, and I moved here to do some work looking at Muslim communities at the local level. And one of the things that I kept hearing across the country from community members is that there were lots of negative things happening. Women having the hijab pulled off, young kids being bullied and harassed, and so on and so forth. And I didn't know if things were actually worse or if they felt worse because of the election cycle. And because we had people who were running for office who were saying pretty horrible things about minority communities, and specifically Muslims. And so I pulled together a team of researchers, and we built the most comprehensive map that looks at anti-Muslim activities at the state and local level. And we wanted to see if things were as bad as people said they were, or did they feel like they were that way, but perhaps not. And what we found is that there was a remarkable and troubling spike in anti-Muslim activities. And what we would learn over time, of course, from work like the ADL and others, is that the things that were happening to the Muslim community in the US were happening to other minority communities, because the folks who hate don't just hate Muslims. They hate gays, they hate Jews, they hate blacks, they hate women, they hate immigrants. And this should really, really concern us. And so I'm delighted to have ADL here with us and so many others today. And I'm also delighted that in the very near future that we're going to be launching a project with ADL looking at hateful conduct online. And this is a online dashboard that will monitor hateful conduct on Twitter, targeting all minority communities. But what I think is exciting about what George Salim has pulled together here is that we're moving away from just what today's event is moving away from just research and theory, but into practice, because it's at the local level, it's at campus colleges across the country where innovations are taking place, where kids come together, young folks come together, I don't want to insult anyone, to confront and address these folks, these kinds of problems. And so I'm really, really excited. I've got 1,000 questions for George. Most of all is how the hell did he pull this together so fast? I know he joined ADL just a short while ago, but George is an old colleague and friend, and if there's anybody that can pull together fantastic projects in short order, it's George Salim. So I just want to end here by thanking everyone for coming today. I am, again, delighted to host ADL, but I wish it weren't the case that we see these kinds of horrible spikes in hateful crimes and hate speech across the country. But the silver lining is, I think, is that the last couple of years has forced people to recognize the need for us to come together, to mobilize, to think about how we can be more innovative, for folks like George to take on projects like this. So I want to turn it over now to Jonathan Greenblatt, who's going to say a few words on behalf of ADL. But again, on behalf of New America, thank you very much. We are really, really thrilled to have you here today, and really excited to hear the presentations from the three universities. So thank you.
So thank you, Bobby, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Greenblatt. I'm the CEO of the ADL, and absolutely delighted to look at this room and see some friends and see some new faces, and just so pleased that ADL is working in partnership with New America. So I really want to thank Bobby and thank my friend Anne-Marie Slaughter, who I know couldn't be here, because we couldn't be happier to be working in collaboration in this beautiful venue on these issues which matter so much. And I'm so glad, as you said, Bobby, this is the start of a rich partnership. So one of the biggest challenges we find at the ADL facing civil society today is growing hate and extremism. and its increasing pervasiveness. And we see it now in the political conversations in ways that just a few years ago you wouldn't have ever imagined. And we see it in public spaces in ways that are incredibly alarming, and indeed we see it increasingly at colleges and universities. Hate groups have demonstrated skill and sophistication with their use of marketing and technology and recruiting to try to exploit academic freedom and penetrate the places where young people come together to discover and to learn. And in this moment, where there is so much polarization, where there seems to be more and more division, we know that this kind of bias and intolerance, it really threatens to erode the threads that hold our whole social fabric together. And to my friends in the audience who are Muslim, you know what I'm talking about. And to my friends in the audience who are from communities of color, you know what I'm talking about. And to my friends in this audience who might not be from this country, or who might be the children or grandchildren of immigrants or refugees, if you open up the newspaper, you know what I'm talking about. For the second year in a row, the FBI's official reporting on hate crime statistic shows a rise of 5% overall. But particularly pernicious are crimes against people based on their race, based on their faith, based on their national origin, or their sexual orientation. And the fact of the matter is that bigotry doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It is learned. And it can escalate, as we talk about often at ADL. We sometimes explain this phenomenon as a pyramid of hate. And what can start with name-calling can mutate into prejudice, can escalate into harassment, violence, and worse. So it is imperative that we move, kind of like Bobby said, from talking about the issues, right, and spreading the word, to actually finding solutions to address it head on. Innovate Against Hate uses that wisdom of local communities to implement creative counter-narratives in the battle against hate so we can build stronger networks of understanding. And this was created, and I'm going to take a moment to thank some of the people behind it, in response to what we see at ADL, the rise and proliferation of hate on college campuses. You know, we track anti-Semitic incidents at ADL, and to think that in 2017 we saw an 89% increase year over year. Acts of harassment, vandalism, and violence on college campuses directed at people because they were Jewish identity or Jewish institutions. Think about that. In the year 2017, almost a 90% increase just year over year. And so then the question becomes, well, how do you deal with it? Well, there is no one better positioned to deal with it than the students on these campuses themselves. This problem won't be solved by old people in suits and ties. It's actually going to be tackled and thwarted by the students themselves. So I'm going to hand over the program to George in just a moment, but let me take a moment to just acknowledge that I remember when Tony first came to me, goodness, it must be like a year ago, right, with this idea of work he was already undertaking and thinking about how we could give it scale. And then I give tremendous credit to Tony for your creativity and innovation in making this possible. And I also will echo Bobby's sentiments to thank George Salim. George is our Senior Vice President for Programs at ADL. He's been with us less than a year, but this kind of engagement that brings together people across lines of faith, across lines of race, to think about how can we come together and fight hate, it's exactly the kind of work that George does every single day. And he does it through a network of offices, and Daron Ezekson is here. He's the regional director of our DC office. And many of the people from the DC shop are here today. We are doing this work across the country, and we couldn't be prouder to do it in partnership with New America Today, and we couldn't be prouder to do it and sort of pass the baton, if you will, to all of you, the young people who really got the ideas that can make change happen. So without any further ado, let me thank our panel of judges and hand the program over to George.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So you're sitting here in this room and you're thinking to yourselves, I'm the audience, I'm the studio audience today. And you're only half right. This event is actually being live streamed right now. 26 ADL offices, 25 of them in the United States, one of them abroad, are currently live streaming this event right now. And those 25 ADL offices have shared those links with many of their partners, stakeholders, and key community persons that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so there's a lot more people tuning into this event today than are just here in the room. Those of you that are here in the room today have a special place in my heart because you made it downtown, irrespective of what parade or may not have been happening today. And for those of you that are checking in with us online, we're so thrilled you could dial in, and we're looking forward to a great program. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First of all, Jonathan and Bobby, thank you for the great introduction. So as was introduced, my name is George Salim, and I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled and delighted to brief you on this new program today, Innovate Against Hate, where student teams dedicate their entire spring 2018 semester to pushing back on all forms of hate and intolerance on college and university campuses across the country. 3 university teams competing today from, we see the banners over here on the side, University of Maryland, University of Nebraska, and Boise State University were selected after going through a very competitive first and second round judging process out of 19 teams total. And let's put up a slide to show you where those kind of 19 teams started from across this semester. This was really our pilot semester, where you see the indications of where all the programs took place across the country. As far as what you're going to see today, each one of these teams, to give you a sense of the agenda, will give their presentation, a summary of their brief, for about 10 minutes, followed by a brief question and answer period by our distinguished panel of judges, which I will introduce here shortly. After all the teams have presented, the judges have scoring sheets and have criteria which they will be evaluating all the programs on. The judges will then retreat to an undisclosed location. They will tabulate their scores, and the folks online will not have any type of audio or visual contact with the judges during that period. And the judges will come back here, and we will announce first, second, and third prizes for the teams here today. So the awards and plaques of money from first, second, to third place are for $5,000, $3,000, and for $1,000 respectively. We'll take some photos and we'll kind of wrap up the event here today. And so I alluded to a distinguished panel of judges, and I want to start by introducing that panel of judges here today in no particular order and somewhat different order from what they're sitting here today. I want to start out by introducing a new friend, but hopefully a longtime colleague and associate, Mr. Ashley Bell. Ashley Bell is the founder and chief executive officer of 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center, united to elevate issues disproportionately affecting communities of color above partisan politics. Mr. Bell founded 2020 as part of his mission to fundamentally change the way in which the American political system addresses racial justice issues. Ashley, please stand up and acknowledge. To his right, I want to introduce Fariba Yassi from Facebook. Fariba is a policy manager focusing specifically on developing and helping to implement counterterrorism policy across all of Facebook's platforms. Prior to joining Facebook, Ms. Yassi spent 12 years at the Albright Stonebridge Group, and her work at Facebook and at Albright Stonebridge cover a number of different regions, predominantly in Turkey, Latin America, Europe, and the Middle East. Fariba, thank you for being here today. Next, a longtime mentor, friend, and colleague, Imam Muhammad Majid, who serves as the executive director of the All Dulles Area Muslim Society, as well as the executive imam. He is the chairman of the International Interfaith Peace Corps and former president of the Islamic Society of North America. Imam Muhammad Majid has a long and distinguished history of commitment to public service through many organizations, to include but not limited to the Peaceful Families Project. Imam Majid, please stand up and be recognized. Next, Mr. Ron Estrada, who serves as Senior Vice President of corporate social responsibility and community engagement for Univision Communications. Based in Washington, D.C., Mr. Estrada is responsible for developing and nurturing strong working relationships at both the local and national level with community organizations, key stakeholders, including businesses, nonprofit, federal, state, and local organizations. Ron, please stand up. Next, Ms. Sally O'Brien, who serves as Senior Vice President of Institutional Partnerships at the Pew Charitable Trusts. Sally O'Brien has led the development of strategic and philanthropic partnerships at Pew since 2010. She was previously at Johns Hopkins University, where she serves as an Associate Dean for Development and External Affairs at the Carey Business School, and before that, she was the Director of Development at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. Sally, please stand up. Thank you. And last but not least, given the nature and scope of this presentation, I want to introduce a friend and colleague from the ADL team, Amy Blumkin. Amy is a visionary marketing professional who has worked with some of the most respected and well-known brands across the globe, to include AT&T, American Express, Disney, and the Super Bowl. She currently serves as the Vice President of Brand and Marketing at ADL, and in addition to all the amazing work she's done with ADL in the marketing and branding context, she's an amazing colleague and associate that's helped advance the ADL mission in the times that were discussed earlier. Amy, please stand up. So before I invite the first team to stage, I'm in charge of setting the scene, if you will. And so what I'm going to do is just for a few minutes, I'm going to walk through a few slides and share a little bit of background as to what went into the presentations that we're going to see judged and evaluated today. So as the map shows here today, this spring semester, as I mentioned, was our pilot semester of Innovate Against Hate, which had 19 participating schools from across 16 states that really spanned coast to coast, as you could see here today. And I'm happy to share that as we undertook this process, the interest from campus leadership, faculty, and administrators was really overwhelming when they heard that ADL wanted to come onto their campus and help expand the vision and mission of our work within the ADL hallways every single day. So what I'm going to describe for you here very briefly is what each of the university teams was asked to do over the course of the 15-week semester that just concluded. The students were enrolled in classes earning academic credit. These classes that they were enrolled in involved a variety of titles to include social, digital, or media type curriculum or content that develop tools and protocols and platforms to counter all forms of hate and extremism, while at the same time promoting justice, equality, and inclusion on their college campuses. The objectives of the program were made in a deliberate way so that they were very broad and so that there could be innovation and experimentation from the West Coast to the East Coast and everywhere in between, so that campuses could really tailor the programs that they got into. Within this structure, we drove a very tight curriculum development model, which was facilitated by full-time faculty that were actual course instructors. So what this effectively means is over the course of a 15-week academic semester, ADL curricula was part and parcel of what the students did every single day across their entire academic semester. Some students signed up for classes like digital media, mass communications, or something related to that, and they came in with a specific course title that they enlisted for. And as they came into the course, their professor said, we're going to put this syllabus aside for a second, and we're going to adopt ADL Innovate Against Hate. And that became the working syllabus for the college or university semester that the students applied throughout the semester. Between 40 and 100% of the students' grade, depending on the schools, was based on the content and delivery and metrics of this presentation that you will see from here today. And since students are earning the grade, I think it goes without saying, they are compelled to do beyond a great job. So let's jump ahead to what the students actually do. So let me share with you what they do in very specific format. Anywhere from 5 to 50 students within the class break up into a real-life agency and form numerous functional departments, just like any company or organization would do, across the issue sets of advertising, app development, budget, graphic design, research, public relations, social media, video production. The list really goes on. Second, they then conduct and perform market research, which guides their big bet, their idea, how they're really going to tackle or address the problem set. And then create a creative idea brief, which we call part and parcel of the heart of this organization. Their creative brief is really what's developed around week 5 and is their blueprint for what they will conduct throughout the entire semester. Once ADL and working closely with our implementation partners at EdVenture Partners sign off on the big bet or the idea, we give them, and this is a quote, we give them $1,000 budget to go forth and implement. Now you might be thinking to yourself, $1,000, that's kind of a lot of money, or maybe it's not, I'm not sure. On top of that, the students get $500 in Facebook ad credits. Thank you, Facebook. And now we push them out the door and we say, go make this happen, bring your idea to life. And if you can stop for a moment and visualize, for those of you not in the room from a college or university, if you give $1,000 in cash to a small college classroom and $500 in Facebook credits and say, go do something amazing, you can bet that they're going to do something amazing. Innovate Against Hate is all about the do something component here, with the objective of making campuses, communities, and the world a better place against all forms of hate. So now to better understand the Innovate Against Hate program, it's my honor to introduce the first university that you'll be presenting today. Let me start with introducing the University of Maryland to come out, get set up, and take the stage. As I mentioned, the University of Maryland will give a presentation for about 10 minutes to present, followed by 5 minutes of question and answer from our judges. So with that, let me go ahead and ask the University of Maryland to come up. We'll reset our slide, and we'll turn it over to Maryland.
Hello, everyone. We are the University of Maryland, and this is Marilyn Frame. Let me skip through this a little bit. This is Nina's story. When Attorney General Sessions announced last fall that the deferred action for childhood arriving would be coming to an end, University of Maryland student Nina watched it live, shaking in tears. Nina lives to blend in, always driving cautiously and staying under the speed limit. As an undocumented student herself, Nina constantly is careful of who she discloses her status to. Nina has decided to share her story because, in her words, sometimes it's for the better that there's one less ignorant person in this world.
My name is Paige Padmore, and my grandparents are immigrants. That could be me.
My name is Marcella Goldring, and I was not born in the U.S. That could be me.
My name is Andel Paul, and I am a second-generation Indian American. That could be me. According to the DREAM Education Empowerment Program, out of the approximately 65,000 undocumented students that graduate high school each year, only about 5 to 10% enroll in higher education. And out of those who enroll, only 1% of those graduate. If Nina graduates from UMD, she'll be one of 50 nationwide. The rest will not finish school. According to a study done by UCLA, 77% of undocumented students have reported moderate to severe financial anxiety in school. It is particularly challenging for these students to find informed or trustworthy faculty and staff to support their needs. And for students like Nina, it becomes a question of where to even begin. So we developed a pre-survey, trying to figure out the general knowledge and climate on our campus. We found a particular lack of knowledge when it came to the silent majority understanding the grievances and the needs of the immigrant, undocumented, and international community. Further, we found that 1 in 3 students at the University of Maryland do not know what qualifies as a hate bias incident. And further, if they did, they do not believe it's accessible to report one or even know how to report it. Because of this, we had to target the silent majority. Those who are largely supportive of the immigrant, undocumented, and international students, but stay silent or inactive when it comes to actively assisting their peers. So for the purposes of this presentation, we will refer to the immigrant, undocumented, and international community as the IUI community. From here, we conducted a multitude of ethnographic and interview-based research, looking at campus departments like those that facilitated trainings on campus, like our UndocuTerps program. We looked at student organizations like the Iranian Student Foundation, and we talked to individuals. And when we did, we found a long-standing problem. The silent majority is either unaware of these grievances and needs of the IUI community, or they're aware but they don't know how to help, and how critical it is to do so. So Marilyn Frame set out to fix this problem. Marilyn Frame, through multiple tests and revisions, is an initiative designed to reframe attitudes on immigration. Like Nina, we set out to inform, empower, and mobilize the silent majority through our multi-platformed online campaign. This campaign is broken up into two prongs, the first being our social media aspect and then our mobile-friendly website. The website is a prototype for our mobile application we envision to be our next step.
We developed a strategy using popular social media to create an engaged environment with our community, as well as dialogue on the IUI community's issues. We used our Facebook as a hub for our community to engage with each other, as well as read relevant posts and our other posts from our other social media platforms. This platform we used to go towards Ask FM, where our community could contact us with questions anonymously about the IUI community and our campaign in general. Our Twitter was used as a way to spread updates and concise messages about our campaign, as well as our hashtag, Marilyn Frame. Our Twitter was used to show appealing content, and so that included our photos from our events, our blog posts, and our BuzzFeed quizzes. Our YouTube channel showed our video content, which include IUI community members' feelings on campus, and this includes Nina's story. On Facebook alone, we were able to engage and reach about 30,000 people and ongoing. And with our BuzzFeed quizzes, we used the BuzzFeed personality quiz interface in order to try to get our viewers to see different ways of incorporating quizzes into our campaign. And we were able to reach out to 300,000 people. Our in-person events included our 2 tabling events outside of our student union, our Maryland Day events, which is a campus-wide event, and we got to interact with those people, as well as a research presentation with a research summit. With this, we had 11,000 reached people from our in-person events, 300,000 people from our BuzzFeed quizzes, and 40,000 people from our social media initiative.
In a little over 2 months, we were able to reach almost 400,000 people. So why does this matter? This is a quantifiable measurement of the effectiveness of our campaign. These people were reading our content, they were engaging with it, but most importantly, they were becoming more informed. We took advantage of this growing online community and we directed them to our website, marilynframe.org. This website serves as a central hub for students, faculty, and members of the IUI community to go to get their questions answered and to also connect with one another. Under our Resources tab, we included information on how to best help the IUI community. For example, a friend of Nina's could go to this tab to help her deal with her financial anxiety and to connect her with our Student Crisis Fund. We also curated a blog where we posted our own original content, and we invited the community to share their own work. Here you can find both written and video posts from a variety of different perspectives and genres. And this includes a Vogue-inspired 70-minute video, highlights from campus events, and also short stories and poems from the IUI students themselves. We also included an events calendar and a hotspots page, which highlighted relevant events both on and off campus. This included the Festival of India and the Japanese American Film Festival. So far, we have highlighted 8 tactics that we used to grow our campaign. But this all culminated into creating a mobile app. We used the website as a prototype for this app and tested a variety of content and resources that we felt would be the most impactful. But with this app, users will have all of the resources within the palm of their hand. We will also include 2 important new tools. The first one is the most critical one. This will give users a way to report hate crimes and hate bias incidents on campus through their mobile phone. We will include buttons that connect them to the UMD Campus Police, to our UMD Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and also to the Anti-Defamation League's Washington, D.C. regional office. The second feature of this app will be the buddy system, and this connects local students with their new IUI peers with similar interests or programs of study. This feature would allow current students with extensive experience on campus to introduce their new IUI peers to their new campus, their new culture, and to connect them with critical academic or language help. So after we implemented our campaign, we conducted a post survey, and we found that now 4 out of 5 students understand what a hate bias incident is, and they're comfortable reporting this on campus. Furthermore, we found that they were generally more informed on the grievances of their IUI peers. We spent a total of $760, and in addition, we had $500 of Facebook ad credits. Our budget was split into 3 main areas. The first being production, which is our videos and also our branding. The second is outreach, which includes supplies, t-shirts, and giveaways. And the third is technology, which includes our website fees and also additional social media ad credits. We calculate that we reached approximately 500 people per dollar spent.
This campaign was created with replicability and transferability in mind. We plan to trademark and take this idea and pitch it and interact with other communities across the nation to create frame communities nationwide. So join us and help the Ninas of the world. This is something that we have built, and we plan to continue building this until we have a nation of framers.
3. Marilyn Frame.
Marilyn Frame.
Marilyn Frame. Marilyn Frame.
Marilyn Frame, reframing issues and attitudes on immigration.
This is Marilyn Frame. This could be us. Thank you.
I guess I'll go first. First of all, excellent job, excellent presentation. I commend all 3 of your work. Question, I saw the result or the outcome of 4 out of 5 awareness of what defines a hate bias crime. And at the beginning or part of your presentation, you presented some data or some points again that very few students really were aware of what that definition was. Can you just touch a little bit on exactly how we came from the beginning to where there was little to zero kind of awareness to that 4 out of 5? Because I just want to make sure I capture that.
Sure. So we actually created a pre-survey that was very similar to the survey that the ADL created to measure these kind of hate bias incidents on campus. And when we put out that pre-survey, we found it clocked in at about 33%, either didn't realize what a hate bias incident was or how acceptable it was. And then at our post-survey, we found that it clocked in at about 19%. So the way that we presented our data was that it was 1 in 3 that didn't know, and then the flip was that 4 and 5 agreed. But if we were to do it a similar way, it would just have been that 1 in 5 now did not know. So it went from 1 in 3 to 1 in 5.
I also want to add that the initial survey was given around February, and then the post-survey was given, I think, the end of April, beginning of May.
I'll jump in. At the very beginning, you talked about the challenge of the particular student who came forward and talked about her challenges. Did you have any difficulty getting people to participate in this? Because there's been so much care and attention. People don't feel safe. So how did you overcome that?
So that's actually a great question, and probably one of the biggest things we ran into when kind of trying to jumpstart this campaign. So Nina's name isn't actually Nina, and that's not actually her, which I figured was kind of implied, especially in this climate. So it was just a matter of trying to gain trust first. So the first videos that we did and interviews that we did were very challenging to get the trust of these people, but then as soon as they saw exactly what they had to expect on our website, and we always gave the option that they could either have their faces blurred out or have it be a written blog, or anything that they felt comfortable with, we were able to gain this traction. Because as soon as we were able to offer a platform to this community, people took it by the hands as long as they knew that they were safe with us, and that was very rewarding for us.
How did you, first of all, I would like to say that thank you for your presentation. Make me think a lot myself. But there's definitely some particular focus group. Have you reached out to particular clubs or no marketing strategy? How did you go about it that make the community aware of this?
So when we were talking about our messengers and how we started, we talked to campus departments and student advocacy organizations in addition to these individuals. So along with the Iranian Student Foundation, we also talked to our Multicultural Association. We talked to our LGBTQ Association. We were talking to so many different organizations to get these perspectives and really figure out what was already out there before we could create this initiative. I don't know if you guys want to add on that.
I think that's
yeah. As well as conducting these individual level interviews and talking to the UMD departments themselves.
Let me also just third, fourth, fifth, fantastic presentation. It takes a lot of guts to come up here and speak, and so eloquently, so really well done. One question I have for you, throughout the campaign, throughout the semester, what challenges did you face and find that had to lead to kind of a restructure perhaps, or any sort of amendment to the strategy that you set out with at the beginning?
I think one that really sticks out to me comes from your question, getting people to speak to us and getting people to trust us. And the way that we navigated around that is we first had to create a safe space for them to come to. So we did work with the UndocuTerps organization, which helps to support undocumented students on campus. And they do a really good job of protecting the safety and identity of these students. So we worked hard with them to figure out ways to gain their trust and to figure out students who would be willing to speak to us. And surprisingly, there was a large number of students who opened up once we partnered with that organization.
Yeah, and I just say second was more of a logistical thing. I think that you saw that we didn't reach our budget. We were a few $100s short, and that was because the videos that we had allocated that money to, we wanted to spend more time getting that quality over that quantity. So that was like giving the editors more time to edit, giving more time for that to be generated, and we had to push back some of our videos. And then the deadline hit, and we just didn't have time to do those videos.
Also, I believe that it was a little bit hard to reach out to the silent majority at first. We had to create all of these platforms and go to these in-person events to connect really with our audience, and also just make sure that we're pushing out content so that they're engaged in what we're doing.
I was just going to quickly add that in general, throughout the entire process, as we were learning how to strategically manage our resources, our funds, and our time between our group, our campaign was constantly evolving.
Again, great job. I think you did a great job of really isolating your audience and going for the silent majority. But I'm thinking your own social media is hard to hide from everybody else that's not a part of the silent majority. Was there any instances where you had a chance to speak to people who necessarily didn't understand what you were doing, or just miseducated on the issues, that you had to find strategic ways of getting them to join a part of your program?
Yes, so we had a few negative comments on Facebook about some of our posts about UndocuTerps trainings and different posts about just overall content. And when we got those, it was mostly about speech, hate speech, that sort of thing, and about like not contacting, but doing different ways of addressing different hate speeches. And our campaign reached out to those people on Facebook and tried to set up a dialogue with them and talk with them, but unfortunately they didn't reach back out to us. But in an event when that would happen again, we have always tried to reach out to those people and talk with them.
Okay, so I'll bring up the last question here, and again, echoing everyone's sentiments. You guys did an amazing job on a very short time period, and $760, I'll take the work you did for that in my budget any day. So you talked about sort of this growing. So I'd love to hear from you about scalability. How do you take something like this and bring it to other campuses? Who do you reach out to? How do you make this more of a movement, and how do you scale it?
Yeah, so the main aspect of our campaign that we want to bring to other campuses is our app. And we feel like we have a solid template of a bare bones app that universities can take and form to the needs of their campus. So we have 2 stages of implementation. Immediately, like right now, we can just create a simple template for the app, which would include a way to report hate crimes. It would also include a simple buddy system. And it would also include a way for students to create their own profiles with their interests and their majors of study so that we could connect the students. And we estimate that this will take around 6 to 8 weeks to develop and around $10,000. In the future, we do want to make our app a little more complex. We want to make the buddy system look a little like Tinder, where people are connected automatically, and it looks at your location and people in your radius. And just add other aspects to the app as well. And that could take anywhere between 6 months to a year to create and about $60,000.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
This is it? Media impressions? So before I introduce our next program, Boise State, I want to spend just a moment talking about some of the media impressions that we heard a little bit about coming out of the presentation from University of Maryland, and that you will hear continuously throughout the next 2 presentations, is that the colleges and universities who participated in the campaigns across all 19 schools produced countless successful media hits in college and university newspapers, local and regional, and even national media outlets, to include BuzzFeed, Vice News, and many other household names that you know where they got positive media impressions. You know, the college and university students, by their nature and by their age, are in fact digital natives. So when we tallied up everything that the ADL helped put together this semester, we counted in total over 400,000 impressions on the Facebook platform alone. We counted over 50,000 impressions on the Twitter platform alone. And on Instagram, we counted over 34,000 impressions of all the college and university programs put together. Keep in mind, some of the teams used any means necessary to get out on social media and spread their message, but the depth and breadth and reach, really, of the college and university impressions across traditional print social media, online, and across non-traditional forms of social media and evolving platforms was really quite tremendous. And I'll introduce some other fun facts in between our next presentations. But right now, I want to turn it over to Boise State and have them come up and take the stage. Boise State, please join me.
We actually need handouts for y'all that you might be interested in having. Mm-hmm. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence,
across our nation,
within their lifetimes,
1 in 4 women will be victims of severe physical abuse by an intimate partner. That's 1
in 4.
On August 11th, 2017, our nation experienced an event that made us look closer into the cultures of hate within American society. The riots in Charlottesville invited groups such as white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and Klansmen. Violence ensued that left 34 people injured, 3 dead, and the lingering question, how did we get to this point?
Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center has recently added misogyny to its list of hate groups. This addition signifies that misogyny is not simply an antiquated practice, but instead a violent movement that is regaining momentum in today's society. Its antithesis is Students Against Misogynistic Establishments, or SAME. Now, in light of Charlottesville, cultural editor for Vox, Asia Romano, suggested that the gateway drug that led them to join the alt-right wasn't racist rhetoric, but rather sexism. The basic idea that women are getting too out of hand is the patriarchal common denominator, and it aligns perfectly with male rage against social justice activism, which in turn paves the way for white nationalism and white supremacy to gain a foothold. Take, for example, the Proud Boys, an extremist group that has recently gained a foothold in Boise, Idaho. Their leader, Gavin McInnes, defines a key component of masculinity as having beaten the shit out of someone, as well as to view women as subservients among multiple other degrading messages, as illustrated.
Our campaign was aimed to create a discussion about violence and misogyny. To do so, we focused on white men ages 18 to 34 due to their susceptibility of this hateful ideology. The National Organization of Proud Boys has created a chapter in Idaho 1 year ago that has amassed over 500 followers and has tweeted 5,000 times. Young men join misogynistic organizations such as the alt-right and Proud Boys for 3 main characteristics. First, they are fraternity-based. The Proud Boys are self-described as a pro-West fraternal organization, which means that our target is likely susceptible to their messaging. Second, they are emasculation-centered. They feel that they are not allowed to exist in a way that they believe men should exist. Therefore, the Proud Boys aim to make men great again by forcing women to learn their place. Finally, it's important to note that the main motivation to join these groups is the protection of their privilege. The Proud Boys' common chant is, "We don't fear the fight, we are the fight." Their violence and aggression is normalized, thus protected.
For this campaign, we used our budget to create a dialogue between members of our university and community to counter messages of misogyny. Originally, our budget was allocated to 4 key areas: marketing, events, promotional materials, and social media. Fortunately, a local office company, as well as numerous on-campus organizations, joined together to donate all of our marketing materials, which allowed our budget to be conserved for our events and our promotional materials. We had our social media campaign broken into Facebook and Twitter. We focused on these 2 outlets because of a Pew Research poll that revealed that a mere 26% of our target demographic utilize Instagram, whereas 75% use Facebook. Through a combination of generalized page promotions and individualized post boostings, we were able to garner 83 Facebook impressions for every Facebook dollar spent. And through a test, validate, and revise strategy, we were able to evolve through 3 different social media campaigns and increase our reach by each revision by over 2,600.
Our campaign represented an integrated approach of both in-person events and online tactics. For in-person events, we began by tabling on our campus multiple different times, as well as partnering with the Boise State Honors College to facilitate a Friday forum. The pinnacle of our events was the Summit on Violent Misogyny, specifically where we had speakers, panelists, performers, and a bystander intervention training. Additionally, we went on to actually present a poster at the ServiceLearning Expo, as well as hosting a picnic forum. Our online tactics included a speaker spotlight series, in addition to a fact versus fiction series, a promotional video for our summit, as well as live streaming the event, a testimonial series, and current event discourse, where we commented on misogynistic issues we see in the newspaper, so individuals better had the ability to label it and understand it. Specifically, our messaging strategy had 3 critical components to it: educating, dispelling, and confronting. On educating, it is important to recognize that when we are discussing uncommitted or at-risk groups, it roughly translates to uneducated groups. So we hosted a variety of informational tactics. One such tactic was the Speaker Spotlight series, through which we asked experts to give their take on misogyny and how we have the ability to interact and overcome it. However, we later recognized that we weren't just working against disinformation, we were working against disbelief, that individuals truly did not believe that misogyny is a problem, or specifically, that it is their problem. So we launched multiple tactics, starting with the Fact versus Fiction series you can see here, where we targeted those false narratives and instead presented the truth. We combined this with the Testimonial series, where we asked individuals within our community to take part in sharing their stories. Our final tactic was that of confronting, giving individuals the tools to see and confront misogyny when they witness it in their life. Online, we focused on sharing current event articles and then providing discourse for how they can label and spot it. We also partnered with the Gender Equity Center to present a bystander intervention training, where a representative came to our summit, presented several scenarios, and then articulated the tools that individuals can use to confront and dismantle misogyny. Overall, our messaging tactics were highly successful and garnered us much community support.
We enjoyed community support throughout the construction of our campaign. We were able to talk with 6 different professors, on-campus influencers, and Miri Cypers, the Northwest Director of the ADL. We were also incredibly lucky to have the support of Idaho State Representative Melissa Winthrop. In addition, we received coverage from the on-campus newspaper, The Arbiter, who wrote 2 articles about the growth of our campaign and is in the midst of writing a 3rd. SAME was also honored for our efforts at Boise State University through the ServiceLearning Expo. There were over 140 people in attendance, 60 competitors, and there we were recognized for the Best in College Award for our ability to create change and impact on our campus.
Now, there are 4 fronts through which we measured our campaign's effectiveness. First was surveys. We surveyed 39 individuals both pre and post our events. Utilizing a Likert scale from 1 through 5, we asked participants questions pertaining to misogyny. We found overall, on an individual basis, that there was an increase of 2.7 on the individual level. Next was interviews. We selected individuals that would attend our events and then interviewed them both prior and after our campaign. One common theme we found throughout all the interviews was that after attending the events, individuals felt better that they could identify misogyny and that they had the tools properly to fight it. Third was our on-campus culture that surrounded SAME. We gave out wristbands and t-shirts, and these wearable items were essential in creating a sense of camaraderie between SAME, the Boise State student body, and the greater Boise community. And last but certainly not least is our social media analytics. The Proud Boys relied on Facebook heavily, and that's where we had reached almost 42,000 people on Facebook alone. In addition to that, we also had a loyal audience of over 510 followers on Facebook. Now, we knew that we were getting at our target audience correctly when we started to receive messages and comments attacking our campaign, calling us crybabies and saying that misogyny simply doesn't exist. These attacks signify that our campaign was in fact successful in getting at our target audience.
Finally, we recognize that SAME certainly has the ability to grow and expand. We've already discussed with the director of the Northwest ADL about coming to present at an event we're hoping to host in the fall. But we see our growth and scalability coming in 2 main areas: viral messaging and a university chapter system. On viral messaging, it is important to understand that the way that we combat ignorance is through narratives. It is through testimonial. So we would like to create a viral hashtag, #ItLooksLike, through which individuals can share their stories of what misogyny looks like in their day in life, and the ways that it is inherently impacting and affecting them. The second way we see our growth is coming from a university chapter system, specifically reaching out to the colleges and campuses that have problems like ours have had, and having the students that are motivated and interested in promoting SAME's message and creating a chapter there. We already have 3 colleges that are interested in promoting this program, including College of Western Idaho, Lewis and Clark College, and Whitworth University, expanding SAME to 3 new states in the period of 1 year. with Boise acting as the national center. We already have templates and promotional materials that we can send to them for them to get their start. In conclusion, we have had a very successful past semester, and we are very proud to continue our mission of bringing our nation to the same page.
Again, as same with the previous panel, you guys were amazing. This was a wonderful presentation, and especially on crutches. Well done. I'm particularly interested in the growth of this campaign. Have you thought about connecting with some of the more national movements that we're obviously hearing all about when it comes to misogyny and some of the women's rights campaigns and movements?
So if I might take that, what I think is kind of what we're seeing as a national mood or movement to create social media viral campaigns like Me Too, that essentially kind of start off as this viral campaign and then breathe life into their own. I think it's not so much, because what happens then is we see there's not really a leader of that, if that makes sense. There's not a head, there's not an organization. So ours kind of is that organization, and we're hoping to create campaigns that can partner and can mirror a lot of those same effects, especially with the hashtag #ItLooksLike. Perhaps if there was more organizational structure, I think there's room to grow and expand in that way, but the first comes kind of like the development of ours.
Again, this is a phenomenal just presentation. I want to really thank you for doing this. So you have a completely different environment. You're in Idaho. I mean, this is a rural area,
Yeah.
Right? So,
Don't mind us.
I mean no, but it just speaks to your ability to really reach the audience that you're at. You have a completely different challenge. Talk to me about the challenge of reaching the men that you're trying to reach. In your numbers, you kind of had some numbers there, but do a gender breakdown for me. Are these women that are allies who are following you, who support you and what you're doing, or how has it been to really go after the men who really need to be the target here?
So obviously the men are the people who we're trying to reach, but not surprisingly, they were the hardest demographic to actually reach. When we were scheduling our events, we made an effort to have both men and women represented. We obviously wanted the focus to be on women because it's largely women's narratives. However, we reached out to individuals to try and have them become a part of our events, so it wasn't just a bunch of women trying to speak towards men who think that it's us that's the problem. So we tried to have individuals actually be kind of the face of what males can do to help counter misogyny and to try and help kind of bring that home. Andrew was actually one of the speakers at one of our events, and he discussed toxic masculinity, which has been a way that we've been able to engage many males because it kind of brings the issue a lot closer to home from them. And then once we have them in and interested in our cause with kind of the bait of toxic masculinity, we can start to open up other conversations.
Also, what that breakdown looks like on the survey level, where we looked at individuals, it breaks down at about 50-50. But I would say that there's probably about 2 target demographics. Like, not only are we trying to target men to get them to come to our events and learn, I think we're also creating ambassadors. When we have people sitting in the audience at a bystander intervention training that now have the tools to confront and talk about misogyny when maybe they didn't in the past, I think that increases our outreach exponentially.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Abby.
So last but not least, before our final presentation, I want to make one other kind of commercial introduction. And the commercial here is really for one of the ADL products that goes hand in hand with some of the presentations that we've seen today. ADL has long been at the forefront of fighting hate on campus. Our new Hate Uncycled resource guide helps to connect students and critical support groups across the country through a broader network to address incidents on their college and university campuses through a combination of prevention, preparation, response, healing, and education. This is a forthcoming publication that we'll soon be putting out. It is our hope that resources like Hate Uncycled and programs like this one here today, Innovate Against Hate, can help mobilize students to take more of an active role in combating hatred and extremism on college and university campuses across the country. If you're interested in learning more about this type of work and our work on colleges and university campuses, my colleague who's here in the studio audience, Alyssa Buxbaum, stand up Alyssa, is here today. Please grab her at the end of this presentation and ask how you can get more information on these and other related campus initiatives. With that, I'd like to call to the stage the University of Nebraska for our final presentation. University of Nebraska, the studio audience is ready for you. Come on up. One more time, University of Nebraska. So last night, slight technical difficulty, which we'll get into in a second. My Imam Majid told me a great joke, which I'll tell you after this presentation. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Virginia Gallner.
I'm Josie Jastrom.
I'm Rachel Prush.
I'm Amber Johnson.
And I'm Alexis D'Amato. And we are Room at Our Table. The image you see here was taken by Daniel Cleave, University of Nebraska at Lincoln student and self-proclaimed white nationalist. He is getting undue media attention, and we are fighting back. Today, we are going to show you our target market and the research we undertook to define that. We will walk you through our social media messaging strategy and show you how we analyzed our campaign's efficacy through evaluative metrics. Our target market, our first step in creating this campaign was to define our target market. Our target market is the uncommitted population of college-age individuals who are especially susceptible to extremist ideologies because they have not yet formed an opinion one way or the other in support of refugees. The first step in creating our campaign after we defined this was to undertake research in 3 phases. Phase 1 was to look at extremist narratives to see what they have to say about refugees. In conversation with Mark Pitcavage, senior researcher at the ADL, we learned that there are several extremist factions throughout the state of Nebraska. People tend to fear that refugees coming into their state will take away jobs and economic resources. That's why one of the hallmarks of white supremacist campaigns is often resource scarcity. However, in Nebraska, in 2016, Nebraska resettled the most refugees per capita of any U.S. state. And that's why, given this strong refugee presence, it's more important than ever to provide individuals with positive images of refugees, to challenge these fears of resource scarcity, and provide people with positive images and feelings of hospitality. In phase 2, we harvested Twitter data using the platform NodeXL to get a better sense of the broader online conversation in the state of Nebraska about refugees. Some of the keywords we found include community, freedom, and #RefugeesWelcome, most of which we used in our campaign. In phase 3, we utilized UNO's Kowalewski Commerce and Applied Behavior Lab to get a better sense of the implicit biases in our target demographic. We used psychometric measurement techniques perfected in the Commerce and Applied Behavior Lab to measure their implicit biases. Questions like, in your opinion, how many people like you view refugees negatively? These meta-opinion formats enable participants in our surveys to project their own biases onto the questions. We used UNO students for these surveys because they fit our target demographic.
Based on the preferred platforms of our defined target audience, we chose to utilize Facebook and Instagram to convey our messages.
We have capitalized on the concise nature of social media video clips to create 15 to 30-second videos that were then cross-posted on Facebook and Instagram. Our photos and videos were also created in such a way to invite engagement. The interviewers, myself, Alexis, and Virginia, remained off camera for the entirety of these videos. This served two purposes. First was so that our viewers could envision themselves as eyewitnesses to our family gathering. Second was so that the focus could remain on the refugee family.
We partnered with 4 organizations throughout our campaign. It was important to us to partner with these groups as they already have a vested interest in refugee and global issues. Lacey Studnicka, a director at Lutheran Family Services, shared about the refugee relocation program, as well as having connected us with the Haddad family, who formed the central focus of our campaign videos. They also were later featured on NBC. The Haddad family fled to Omaha from Syria, and in the process were separated from their brother. They're anxiously awaiting to see whether he will be allowed to join them. Additionally, we hosted a dialogue luncheon with over 60 students and community members attending to address our own perspectives and experiences with refugees and diversity in Omaha. There, Mary Beth Davidson Muskin, the regional director of the Plains State region of the Anti-Defamation League, shared about the importance of students' awareness and enthusiasm about challenges that face refugee community in the Midwest and the United States. Other guest speakers shared valuable insights into the experiences of refugee communities within Omaha.
Our dialogue event brought participants together to share a meal, and they divided into small groups to dialogue about the issues of inclusion for refugee communities in Omaha. While our focus was on the digital campaign, an in-person event allowed for the convergence of this online engagement with individual and collective action. This helped forge personal connections to our campaign.
So now that you know a little bit about our campaign, I'm next going to talk about implementation and analysis. First, this metric shows the cost per click of our social media posts. The vertical axis shows the cost per click, while the horizontal axis shows the date of each post. The average cost was about 1 to 2 cents per click, and our total reach was over 11,000 people. We analyzed the effectiveness and the quality of our social media posts by creating a study in the Commerce and Applied Behavior Lab in UNO's College of Business Administration. We used participants that were college students as they fit perfectly into our target market. They randomly assigned, they took 2 different studies, a control and an experimental. The only variable between these 2 studies were the images that were shown. We also used neurophysiological technology, such as eye tracking and emotional technology, to understand what they were looking at and how they felt during the study. We also gave them pre- and post surveys to assess the biases that they've held before and after the study. For the neutral study, we used propaganda from white supremacist marketing materials. And in order to eliminate any biases that were already present, we altered all the images to hide any hate symbols, such as the swastika on this little boy's shirt. Most white supremacist propaganda show themes of family and wholesomeness, so we tried using those same themes in our own campaign. Next, I'll talk about how we evaluated the study. We used heat maps such as this one, and as you can see, there's red, green, and yellow spots all over the photo. Red means that there was long attention in that one spot, while green and yellow means attention was given, just not as long. This photo was taken from the control study, and it's a family that was posted on a white supremacist propaganda website. As you can see, the participants focused on the text of the social media posts as well as the faces of the family. Next, this photo was taken from the experimental study and is a photo of the Haddad family. The attention was given roughly around the same spots as the control study, except participants focused on the faces of this family a little bit longer. Next, we used emotion to understand the angles of the participants' faces as well as the unconscious emotional expressions that they were giving while looking at the campaign. White supremacist propaganda has very high emotional resonance with the people viewing it. And with the experimental study, it was only moderately emotionally resonant with the participants, as it averaged slightly lower than the neutral study.
This shows us that social media alone cannot change the opinions that people hold about refugees. It must be coupled with the in-person events such as the dialogue. Overall, we used our budget to express our marketing message effectively, and now Josie will talk about how we allocated all those costs.
So this resulted in the allocation of funds that paid for a multifaceted campaign. Our funding was beneficial because we were able to host an in-person event in conjunction with our online presence, and we still came in under budget. Our funding was spent on the catering for our dialogue event, videography for our social media posts, and for analysis on our CAB lab.
There is power in highlighting individual stories. And we learned that like extremists who use this national media attention, we can also use stories of the families of refugee families to get the same sort of attention. The focus of our campaign was the Haddad family, but we want to address further families. The Lutheran Family Services used film from our campaign to reach out to NBC to get national media coverage. We were also covered on other news outlets. This family was very important for our campaign, but we need to reach many, many others. For scalability, we have 3 phases. In phase 1, we are strengthening our partnerships. The ADL and EdVenture Partners campaign allowed for us as college students to make a difference on our campus, and local community partners provided us with valuable support. In phase 2, we want to expand our campaign platforms. We want to build numbers and future content. Finally, in phase 3, we are co-branding with Lutheran Family Services of Nebraska to host an event on June 28th. This is going to be a potluck dinner for the Omaha community and hopes to have several hundred attendees for the event. We have a clear message at this event and with our partners. There is always room for refugees at our table. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go first. Excellent job. Again, you all did fabulous, and I really enjoyed the eval and the metrics and how you laid that out and kind of walked us through. Could you just share a little bit about Room at Our Table and how that came to be? And just curious about why that was the tagline of your efforts here.
So in conversation with Lacey Studnicka, the same director at Lutheran Family Services who connected us with the Haddad family, we realized that hospitality is one of the things, and a very Midwestern value too, that brings people together. So we wanted to capitalize on that idea, especially to challenge these narratives about resource scarcity that we were seeing from the white nationalist factions throughout our state. We really felt that Room at Our Table kind of encompassed those hospitality values.
Wonderful job, guys. Really commend the metrics, the strategy, the messaging. It was really well done. One question specifically, you touched on the effectiveness of the social media campaign relative to the effectiveness of in-person events. Curious moving forward how you might want to grow on the social media aspect of it and the growth. There's, obviously the longstanding discussion of in-person, digital, and you know better than I, even given where I work, the role of digital. But curious to hear more about how you might want to grow on your digital media efforts.
So I think Amber can speak especially to the scalability on this.
I would say that we would probably be interested in continuing using these in-person events with our social media, because what we really saw was after our dialogue event, those connections that came from the event, there were some already, obviously, through our social media, but more were coming out of that. There was this reaching out, personal contact, person to person that was coming from this. And so as we're building future content, we also, I didn't mention this, but we used a lot of video and imagery from the dialogue event on our social media campaign. So that really grew it as well, because it wasn't just our words that we were sharing, but hey, look, we did this, we got together, we had this meal, and people were forging these connections. They're still keeping up those connections. We can do more of this. So I think we would still like to continue pairing the in-person events, and thankfully we have such great partners, community partners, especially with Lutheran Family Services, that they have a built-in community within Omaha already, that they, a platform for reaching out to people as well. That was a big part of our campaign, just finding organizations that are very valuable in our community who have that platform. They are already speaking out, and we are helping them do that as well.
For my work with refugees, one of the obstacles of building a relationship is language. How did you overcome that?
Yes, so when we did our videography, and you can see this if you take a look at some of our samples on Facebook, we did have an interpreter present throughout the video. So she was off screen for the majority of the video, but we kept Muhammad's voice in there. We did not do a voiceover, so he spoke in Arabic in the videos, and we added subtitles to make it accessible to English speakers. And we noticed that after using Arabic in the videos especially, a lot of his personal connections and his personal networks started reaching out. And then they reached out to their networks. And so we started to see all of these comments in Arabic on the Facebook. Yeah, so it was a community gathering on the Facebook through language.
You guys did an amazing job. I really loved the organization. I loved the thinking about using the other resources that you had at school. So I commend you on that. You did the social media, and you also did live events, and we know that those work very hand in hand. What did you find that perhaps surprised you at the dinner that you hosted? You spent a big portion of your budget on it. What there, sort of surprised you, perhaps you weren't expecting, either positive or negative?
I think that would be a great question for Amber as well.
I would say, so both Rachel and myself have worked with the organization Sustained Dialogue, which is national, and then we also have our local chapter. So we were familiar with the setup. We've been moderators, trained moderators. And when I was at my table, at least, what I experienced, there were two individuals who were refugees within our Omaha community, and they were able to share just even little things about my hometown, my part of Omaha where I lived, experiences that they had had of, racism in West Omaha and places that I knew, places that I had been, and I was surprised to hear it, but our table was able to really get focused in. We were all sharing experiences, and then when they opened up, which started a little further into the dialogue, so we all started up with our meal, and then we started to have, the moderators would kind of move you through a couple of questions over the time of the meal, but when we got a little bit more open and people felt comfortable, we had these two individuals start sharing their story, and this, for me, it was very important because everyone at the table after and going around and saying, oh, what am I getting out of this today, said, hey, I am hearing something new about my community. It's something I haven't seen before personally, but these individuals are here and they're sharing how they're experiencing Omaha. It's different than my experience. Let's do something to make that experience better for everyone at this table and the event as well. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking the University of So this is the time when the jury sequesters themselves. So judges, I'll ask you to pull your notes, pull your papers together, leave no evidence on the tables whatsoever. You will be escorted out of the room. Studio audience and online audience, we're going to take a short 5 to 15-minute recess. I'd ask that you stay very close. As soon as the judges come back with the verdicts, we are going to announce those here in the room. So please stay close, and we'll be back very shortly. Thank you. What's that? Yes, yes. Are we good to go? All right, everyone, please take your seats. We'll get started in just a moment. I'm going to introduce you. All right, I think we're missing one judge, but Imam Majid is here. We'll get started in just a second. So before we get to the winners, thank you, judges, for the time and dedication to thinking through the scoring and evaluation of all the presentations. Before we get into the announcement, I want to make a very brief introduction. You know, Jonathan earlier mentioned our implementing partners from EdVenture Partners, and I want to introduce a longtime colleague and friend, Tony Scrow, who's the CEO of EdVenture Partners. You know, part of the way that ADL has been working to combat hate and extremism across the country and really across the globe is through a partnership model. And really our partnership with EdVenture Partners has facilitated intro into college and university campuses, not only across the country, but across the globe. Their industry education model has really been the gold standard in how industry and organizations like ADL get access to college and university campuses. So the entire EdVenture Partners team has been just a treat to work with, and I want to call up Tony Scrow to just share a few thoughts with us on the program.
Thank you, George. Hi, everyone, and I appreciate the opportunity just to share a couple of very brief comments. First, thank you in the audience for carving out precious time to be here. We know it's work to schedule this, and ADL, New America, EdVenture Partners, but really most importantly, the students appreciate it because it plays best live. Now, the other thing in recognition of the students, now you have just seen 3 of 19 campaigns. There were 16 other teams that would love to be here. They aren't, and it was highly competitive, as George said. There are elements of brilliance in every campaign that's not here. So the distributive power of what you saw today, coast to coast, is remarkable. And the students put their heart and soul into this for 15 weeks. I say this facetiously, it rules their lives. At the compromise of tests, homework, jobs, relationships, we really appreciate the amount of work that goes into this. We know how much work you've spent, and it shows. I've always considered colleges and universities dense pockets of humanity and a microcosm of society at large, both the good and the bad. And EdVenture Partners has been developing these partnerships on campuses around the globe for 28 years. Unfortunately, the hate landscape is really starting to take over. However, there's ADL, there's hope. And ADL has challenged young people to develop and empower their peers to develop counter-narratives and programs to push back on hate in their communities. They are the best to do it. And Jonathan mentioned that, and it's so true. I have teenage daughters. I'm 62. I'm a knucklehead. I can't do what they do. We really need a bottom-up approach. And that's the magic of this particular model. What's also really encouraging is higher education is willing to stand and has demonstrated an interest to stand shoulder to shoulder and fight the good fight with ADL. And it starts with presidents, chairs, deans, vice chancellors, who will actually welcome ADL and to own the syllabus of the class. So students, as George said, earn credit. What that ultimately means is there's a faculty member, and those that are in the room here today, as well as the 16 others, that welcome ADL into the class, and we took over the syllabus to make the world a better place. That's remarkable. And it says a lot about higher education's interest in providing local solutions to a national problem. I mean, that's really what this is all about. And finally, I want to thank George, Jonathan, and the awesome ADL team that we have the pleasure of working with. Well, this is our pilot year. We have great hopes and expectations that we can expand the program. I think America's ready to have young people be part of the solution and pushing back on hate. Thank you.
If we had a drum set in the room, now would be the appropriate time for the drum roll. What's that? Jonathan is in the back. Jonathan, can you come on forward? I think we're going to do the announcements now. We're going to announce third place, second place, and then first place. As each team comes up, we'll do a quick photo with the teams, with each team individually, and then at the end, we're going to do a group photo with all the teams on stage for second and third place, and then we'll invite the judges to come up and take photos with the groups as well. And we've got a couple backdrops over here with the campuses and other good opportunities for photos. So, that said, is this the third place?
Yeah, sure. I'm going up on stage and then they'll join you. Yes.
Third place, please come forward, University of Nebraska at Omaha.
In the center.
Go ahead, come on up.
Everybody in the center. Beautiful. Yes. Perfect.
Second place, University of Maryland. And last but certainly not least, come forward, University of Boise. Boise State. I apologize. I read it backwards. Congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, scoot down just a little bit. There you go. Scoot down just a little bit if you can.
I don't need those two.
So you all stay right here. I think we're going to ask the other two schools, let's come on up, let's do one big group photo, and then we are going to adjourn just outside for some refreshments. So bear with us for just another moment. I don't know if it does. Should we try? Oh, wait, there's wires here.
I would also like to have the faculty, Kate and Gina, please. Can you join your students up here? And a round of applause for the two faculty that are here. And Liz from Maryland as well, please. Great. Yeah.
Come on.
Get in there.
I know. I'm stand by Salim. I'm a solid.
Just come back a little bit. I want to see your face. Okay.
Once again, thank you, Bobby, and everyone from New America for having us. And everybody, if you'll kind of exit the room into the foyer, there's a reception with food and drink. Great. Well done. Mission accomplished.